We're picking up in the chapter, The Unbreakable Vow. I know I said we would start with Felix Felicis, but it's not that important. The only important really thing there is that Hermione thinks Harry slipped Felix Felicis into Ron's drink in the morning for the Quidditch match, but he didn't. He just pretended to. Okay? So what is that showing us? I said we wouldn't talk about it, but we will for a minute.
It's kind of, it's like, I forgot the word for it, but it's kind of, there's a specific word in psychology for it, I just cannot remember it off the top
It's
of
a
my head.
specific word relating to drugs and such.
Placebo.
It's a placebo effect. You think you're getting the right drug, and therefore you get better because we're not fully understanding all the things the mind can do in terms of, helping kick in, the body to heal and such. Ron thinks he's been slipped the Felix Felicis, even though he hasn't really, and so he plays better. It's why coaches, I used to be a coach, it's why coaches, deliver pep talks before a game. You'll never hear a coach or a, unit commander or whatever go up to you before a battle or something and go, man, we're all going to die here. Guys, we're going to lose this game. We're going to lose it handily because we suck and they're great. Because what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen. So, Unbreakable Vow, towards the end of it. They're at Slughorn's Christmas party, kind of a thing. And Slughorn's asking Harry, of course he's taking what he wants to do. And Snape kind of, butts in around 318, 319 and says, oh, so you're taking all the courses that will help you become an Auror. And Harry, yeah, thought that's what I'd like to be. Slughorn, you'll be a great one, And then Luna comes in and says some crazy stuff. So Snape goes off with Malfoy. And Harry goes off to eavesdrop. Again, as we've said about every instance of eavesdropping in this book and the one big scene of eavesdropping in the Lord of the Rings, what usually happens as a result of eavesdropping? Listening into conversations that you are not supposed to be listening into. We're going to see towards the end of this book, okay, Harry's going to discover who listened to Sybil Trelawney deliver a prophecy to Dumbledore. And it's really going to bother him, all right? Where else have we seen overheard conversations?
In every book.
In every book, yeah. Harry overhears Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. He overhears Snape and Quirrell. Just lots of times. Does he ever hear everything perfectly? And does he get all? No, he doesn't, okay? So, he overhears this conversation. And he hears parts of it. He doesn't hear all of it. Okay? What does he come away thinking, though? Malfoy's trying to do something, right? Harry doesn't know exactly what. He did see Malfoy try to buy something, Borgin and Burke's, okay? He's going to find out later on. Malfoy is using the room of requirement for something. But the room of requirement will never become what Harry wants it to become because it's what Malfoy wants it to become. And Harry can't have the same desire as Malfoy has for the room to be what Malfoy wants it to be, if that's clear. Okay? I don't think it wasn't clear to me. So, chapter 16. Harry goes off to Christmas at the Weasleys. He's talking with Ron and Harry at the beginning of the chapter. And he's talking to them about the unbreakable vow. He overheard Snape say what? I made an unbreakable vow. Okay? Harry doesn't know what that is. So Ron and Fred and George, or Ron explains. What happens if you break an unbreakable vow? You die. Fred and George tried to get me to make one when I was about 5. Really? Seriously? Do you think, the parents would have gotten a letter and therefore they would have not been able to sit for like 2 weeks probably? If Arthur wouldn't do anything, Molly's more than willing to follow good old corporal punishment, all right? So, go several pages into that chapter. Page 330, I think it is. Harry's talking. They're in the kitchen, I think it is. Arthur Weasley is there. Lupin is there. They're listening to the Celestine sisters or whatever, Celestina, sing on the radio and such. And Harry's asking how bad it is at the ministry, and Mr. Weasley says it's bad. They're still holding Shan Stunpike or Stan Shunpike, whichever one you want to use. And Harry tells them about what he's overheard. And Mr. Weasley says, "Has it occurred to you, Harry, that Snape was simply pretending?" Okay. Pretending to offer help so that he could find out what Malfoy's up to? Yeah, I thought you'd say that. But how do we know? Okay. So why does Harry say, "I thought you'd say that"? Pretending to offer help so that he could find out what Malfoy's up to. Yeah, I thought you'd say that. Why?
Throughout all the books, people have been dismissing Harry's concerns about Snape's
Okay. Why have they been dismissing Harry's concern about Snape's actions? Because Dumbledore trusts him. Because in book 1, what did we find out Snape was doing all throughout the school year? Protecting Harry. Okay. Book 2. Kind of. Has Snape ever really gone out of his way to harm Harry? No, he hasn't. If anything, who has? Hagrid, man-eating books and, dangerous creatures and, okay. I thought you'd say that. What's another reason for that? Just leave that alone. How do we know? How do we know what we know is a branch of philosophy called epistemology. What's one way that we know things? Using my hands. We can touch them. We can feel them. We can evaluate them. We can measure them. What else? We can see. We can hear. We can taste. We can smell. Empirical senses. That's one of the ways we know what is around us, right? Because if I didn't have any of those senses, if I were blind and this were closed, and I did, what would happen? I'd run into the door, okay? If I didn't have any sensory perception, some people are born without tactile sense. It's like they have no nerve endings in their fingers. What can be dangerous for them?
They can touch something hot.
And they can literally have their hand on fire and go, huh, and not feel it. Okay? It'd be pretty horrible to have that. Senses. Who famously said, if anybody knows, cogito or cogito ergo sum. Anybody know? Guy named Blaise Pascal, French philosopher, that means I think, therefore I am. Cogito, the O is I, cogito, think, ergo, therefore, sum. I think, therefore I am. Okay? He suggested the very fact that we have thoughts is an indication that we are real, that we exist. We're not, a glitch in the matrix, so to speak. Okay? But that thinking is another way of knowing. You have logical thoughts, etc., etc. The only problem with that is because Sakar's got Look, that suggests what? What do you think about? Usually, things. What are things? Out here in the real world. Yeah, I find it fascinating to hear cognitive scientists and stuff talk about thinking without words. What the hell are you talking about? How do you think without words? Do you think in colors? Well, describe this color or this color. Anybody?
Yellow.
What is that?
It's like,
Word.
it's the color of a banana.
Okay, it's color of a banana. So do you think in bananas? Which is a word. For everything you can think about, you gotta begin with words. So does that mean babies don't think? No, I think babies do think. I think a baby that's breastfed thinks, when it sees a breast, food, but it doesn't have the word food. So what? See, that's when you go, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. I mean, you're off in the twilight zone, man. So, Harry wants to know, how do we know? How do we know what?
That he is just pretending that he doesn't.
How do we know Snape is... What's Harry's real question?
How do we know Snape has actually done the unbreakable vow?
No. How do we know Snape is
Good.
good?
And not a Death Eater.
How do we know Snape's good? What did Harry see in the pensive in book 4? Snape was a Death Eater. Was implies
He's no longer.
he is no longer. It's not like Spock telling Jim Kirk in one of the Star Trek movies, I have been and always shall be, your friend just before he dies. I have been, that's past perfect. It starts in the past and it goes to the present. It's continuing. It is a continuing action. It's not, Snape has been a Death Eater, because that would imply he was. When did it stop, really? Okay. How do we know? Lupin unexpectedly replies. Okay. And notice he had turned his back on the fire now and faced Harry across Mr. Weasley. So Lupin, when Harry asked the question, how do we know? Lupin's face is to the fire. Harry and Mr. Weasley are talking, and Lupin's kind of out of it. He's just sitting there enjoying the warmth of the fire. And Harry asks that question, and Lupin turns around. He gets engaged. Why? He wants to say something. He wants to intervene. It isn't our business to know. What happened when, in the chapter Padfoot's Return, Goblet of Fire, Harry, Ron, and Hermione meet Sirius in the cave? What happens when Sirius says, oh, you wouldn't understand, you're too young? What does Ron say?
That's what everyone says? Or?
Yeah, that's what my dad said. Give us a try, why don't you? What he means when he says, you wouldn't understand, you're too young, what does that really mean? You're too young to know. When you're older, I'll tell you. Are there things that some children are too young to know about? I would argue, because I'm an old fuddy-duddy, yes, there are lots of things grade school kids should not be told about. Quantum physics. Not what you're expecting me to say. Quantum physics is one of them. Okay? Trigonometry. That's another one. Very few elementary school kids are capable of that. There's lots of other things. It isn't our business to know. Notice who that includes. See, Sirius said, you're too young to understand. Lupin doesn't say, Harry, it isn't your business to know. He says, it isn't our business. That should make Harry feel better, right? Harry, I don't know why Dumbledore trusts Snape. Okay? Arthur doesn't know why Dumbledore doesn't trust Snape. And by the way, I don't know if you've realized this before. Arthur and Molly Weasley, they were not in the original Order of the Phoenix. Lupin was. Same age. In fact, Arthur and Molly are probably a little bit older than Lupin because of how old Bill and Charlie are, all right? But they weren't in the original Order of the Phoenix, but they are now. It isn't our business to know, says Lupin. It's Dumbledore's business. What does that mean? Finish the sentence. It's Dumbledore's business to know. That is, he's got the goods. He has all the data. We don't. Dumbledore trusts Severus. So, premise 1, it's Dumbledore's business. Premise 2, Dumbledore trusts Snape. Okay? Conclusion. We what?
We trust Dumbledore.
We should trust Dumbledore. Okay? Which means
We should trust Snape.
we should trust Snape. And that ought to be good enough for all of us. But tells us it's not, right? But just say Dumbledore's wrong about Snape. Why would Harry say that? How did Dumbledore begin his big long conversation with Harry at the end of book 5? Harry, I screwed up. I made a mistake. It's in this book where he says, and because I'm cleverer than most people, when I make a mistake, the consequences are larger. Okay? So he screwed up, big consequences. People have said it many times. It comes down to whether or not you trust Dumbledore's judgment. I do. This is Lupin. Therefore, I trust Severus. Clear as night and day, right? Is that good enough for Harry? No, it's not. But, there it is again. Dumbledore can make mistakes. He says it himself. And he's looking at Lupin, he looks him straight in the eye. Do you honestly like Snape? See, and there's the flaw in Harry's reasoning. Because what does he do?
He points the blame at Lupin.
No. He equates liking
With trusting.
with trusting. Whether or not, well, I'm going to ask a question, and the question is going to presume you've read book 7. Show of hands, who has not read book 7? Okay. If you haven't started, start, because we're going to start it on Thursday. We're probably not going to finish this. We're going to get close. Probably spend 30 to 45 minutes and then get into book 7. Hopefully not 45 minutes. Where was I going with that? Oh. Is there anywhere, for those of you who have read it, is there anywhere in book 7, anywhere, where Snape is likable? Or let me rephrase it. Is there anywhere in books 1 through 7 where Snape comes across likable?
Yeah.
Don't say where, okay?
That's what I'm trying to answer without spoiling.
Well, I'll say where. when he's a boy. There is. He comes across somewhat likable and normal. Okay? Not for long. Doesn't last long. But he kind of. Okay, so go through, other than that one memory, that's all I'm going to say about it. Other than that one memory, how else does Snape come across? Or how does Snape come across books 1 through 7?
Cold.
He does play the part, right? Like Quirrell says in book 1. He's a mean, rotten SOB, as I've said many times. Harry equates being likable with being honest and trustworthy and believable. It's not true, right? People can be unlikable and still trustworthy. So, Lupin, I neither like nor dislike Severus. No, Harry, because Harry starts to, come on, be real. He saw the memory, right? He saw the memory of Lupin sitting next to the tree reading while James and Sirius just egged on Snape. He didn't even get up off the ground when they twisted Snape upside down and floated him in the air. Okay? We shall never be bosom friends, perhaps. After all that happened between James and Sirius and Severus, there's too much bitterness there. But he goes on and says, what did Snape do for him the year he taught at Hogwarts?
He made the whole thing.
Every month, and he did it perfectly. Okay? Harry, well, that Dumbledore had an eye on him. Notice Harry comes up with an excuse. Look at Lupin's response. You are determined to hate him, Harry. And I understand. Notice, Lupin doesn't jump down Harry's throat there. I get it. With James as your father, Sirius as your godfather, you've inherited an old prejudice. Inherited, like it's passed on in his blood. Kind of like rotten to the core. Because prejudice is bad, right? No matter what the prejudice is. What is it? Literally, what does prejudice mean? Prejudging. You haven't even met the person, and you've already said, bad, rotten, evil. Okay? I think it's interesting, you are determined to hate him. That implies Harry doesn't have free choice. Implies, it's not saying it. Okay? If something is determined, then that means events in the universe have so occurred that cannot change. For example, what happens if I let go? It falls. What would happen, just let your mind go with this for a moment, if I let go of this and I floated and this stayed here? Blow your minds, right? Because what would that imply? My holding on to this is what's keeping me down. I mean, every person in here, I'd be scraping brains up all over the classroom because your mind wouldn't be able to happen. Determined, Harry. You are determined. It's like you can't help yourself. Who else is Harry determined to hate? Until we get to the end of book 7. Voldemort. Voldemort. What did he tell Dumbledore when they arrived at the Burrow? I'm going to kill him. And I'm going to take as many Death Eaters with me as I can. And Dumbledore's like, way to go, Harry. Here, let me hand you my 6 shooters, You could take them all out. Spoken like a true son of James and Lily and godson of Sirius. He tells them. What's he doing there? That's right, little boy. Have your little fantasies. Okay? So, Why is this important? Harry's expressing doubt here. About whom? Dumbledore. I mean, it's about Snape. Ultimately, it's about Dumbledore. Well, all of book 7. All of book 7. From the opening chapter until, going to give a little bit away. It doesn't give anything big important away. Until his conversation with Aberforth Dumbledore in just before the Battle of Hogwarts, which is like the third to the last chapter. Okay? All throughout there, Harry is riddled with doubt about Dumbledore. Take that back. He's not riddled with doubt. He has no belief in Dumbledore. Okay? What's another word for trust? What are 2 more possible words for trust? It's Dumbledore's business. Dumbledore trusts Severus. That ought to be good enough. I trust Dumbledore's judgment. Lupin is saying, I believe Dumbledore. I have faith in Dumbledore. Where has Dumbledore let them down so far? Where has Dumbledore let them down since Chocolate Frog Card, 1945? What happened in 1945? Why did I bring up 1945?
That's when Dumbledore and, forgetting his name, had that big fight.
It's when Dumbledore defeated Gellert Grindelwald in a duel. And Grindelwald has been locked up in prison since then. Remember the other day when they talked about the 2 worlds being superposed, one bleeding into? What happened in 1945?
World War II. Or the end of World War II.
World War II was brought to an end. Okay? There was a prison for Nazi war criminals. Up until the late 90s, only one guy was in it, Albert Speer. One person was in this one prison for 45 years. Okay? Harry doubts Dumbledore. And yet, you go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 or 12 pages. Rufus Scrimgeour shows up at the Weasleys for Christmas, or at Christmas during the holidays. And he says, what are you and Dumbledore doing? Where does Dumbledore go to when he's not at school? Harry's like, I don't know. You and Dumbledore have talked about, what's going on? Yeah. What has he said? Not going to tell you. None of your business. Okay? He said, well, I don't want you to divulge secret conversations, but, doesn't really matter whether you're the chosen one or not. What do you mean, minister? Harry wants him to spell it out clearly. He says, well, to the wizarding community at large, it's all perception, isn't it? What's the it he keeps referring to? Whether or not you are the chosen one. To the wizarding community, whether or not you are the chosen one is all perception. It's what people believe that's important. Go back to the conversation with Lupin and Arthur Weasley. What's the difference between their saying, we trust Dumbledore, or the way I rephrased it, they believe Dumbledore, and what he's talking about here? It's what people believe that's important. What does he mean by it's what people believe? Let me put it this way. Is Lupin's and Arthur Weasley's belief in Dumbledore justified? Yes, it makes sense, right? He's proven himself. He has a track record, okay? Is the kind of belief that Rufus Scrimgeour is talking about justified? It's what people believe that's important. What's the what? Whether or not Harry is the chosen one. Remember how we began that? Does it really matter whether you are the chosen one or not? Harry's thinking, he goes, I don't know what you mean. He goes, well, I mean, to you it does, obviously, right? If you're the one who has to kill Satan, it matters. But to everybody else, does it matter? No. He says it's what they believe. What's his point? We want them to believe that you are the chosen one, Harry, whether or not you are. We want them to believe what is the head of the government saying. We want the people, the populace, the citizenry, to think the government has it under control, to think the government has a plan, to think the government has a solution. He is the minister of magic. He does speak for the government. I'm not going all political and everything with this. This is exactly what he's doing. The difference is, how well is the ministry for magic shown its true colors? What did it spend the entire previous book doing?
Denying.
Louder?
Denying.
Denying? What else? I think I heard somebody else say it. Lying. Not just denying, lying. Saying the exact opposite of what it knew to be true. Putting articles in the Daily Prophet that it knew was false. Okay? Harry said nothing. He thought he saw dimly where Scrimgeour was going with this. So Scrimgeour goes on. People believe you are the chosen one. They think you, you are quite the hero. I mean, after all, you've battled the Dark Lord. He says, but the point is, you are a symbol of hope for many, Harry. The idea that there's somebody out there who might be destined, or let's use a word that Lupin used about Harry's prejudice, determined to destroy he who must not be named. Well, it gives people a lift. What does he mean it gives people a lift?
Gives them faith.
Gives them faith, it gives them hope, it gives them a bounce in their step every day. What if you thought all of life was just death and darkness and destruction? What would your outlook be? Yeah, not very good. What is Voldemort? Death and darkness and destruction. He's already proven himself, right? This book opens the way Harry thinks book 5 should open. Book 5 opens and Harry's reading the newspaper, Daily Prophet, watching the evening news through the window because he's expecting what? Deaths, disappearances, mass mayhem, and it's not happening. Here it does. They think you are a hero, Harry. You're a symbol of hope. Where else have we heard that? I almost said Gollum. Dobby, book 2. I can't help but feel that once you realize this, you might, and he kind of, grumbles and grouses before he finally spits out, come to work for the ministry. Does he really mean come to work? I'm going to give you an R Junior badge, No. What does he want Harry to do? Literally, what's he want him to do? Be seen going in and out the door for the ministry for magic. What does that mean? Be seen. Oh, to be seen at just at the right time when there's a photographer for the Daily Prophet to take a picture. For Rita Skeeter to get a quote. What's he want to use Harry for? A symbol.
Publicity. Good publicity.
Good publicity. What's another word? Starts with P. Ends with propaganda. Propaganda. Is propaganda truth? No, it isn't. It is a power's perspective, spin on the truth. That is, there might be elements of truth, but it's only the elements that one is allowed to see. It's like eavesdropping. You don't get the full picture, okay? So, Harry, I still don't really get what you're saying there, Mr. Minister. He says, stand alongside the ministry. What does that mean? Notice the minister doesn't say, Harry, I want you to stand shoulder to shoulder with the ministry. We'll go battle Voldemort together. No, stand alongside. It's the same image. It's the same metaphor, even though he doesn't use the phrase shoulder to shoulder. Okay? So he says, oh, nothing onerous. Come in from time to time, be seen, have your picture taken. Harry, so you want me to give the impression I'm working for the ministry. Notice how Harry rephrases it. You want me to give the impression. What does that mean?
Make it seem like I'm working for the ministry.
Make it seem like. Seem is what kind of verb? Anybody know?
It's pretending you're doing something that you're not actually doing.
It's a subjunctive. It indicates a condition contrary to fact. Kim Kardashian seems like such a wholesome person. I would just like her to give advice to all my daughters. No, hell no. Just no. Don't. That seems, okay? That's the impression. Well, it would give everyone a lift. Again, what does he mean by lift? It would cause them to have what towards or for the ministry?
Faith in ministry.
Are you ready? Trust, faith, belief. What kind of trust, faith, or belief, however? As opposed to the kind of trust, faith, belief Lupin, Arthur, in the Order of the Phoenix has in Dumbledore. Blind?
That everything's fine.
Unconditioned.
Unconditioned? I want to get back to blind, because you're really close. Because there's a good kind of blind faith, but there's a bad kind of blind faith. This is the bad kind. How?
They haven't proven themselves.
Because
Because the whole last book, they lied and denied and.
because it's a
Covered up.
false blind faith. Okay? It's false. It's not true, right? This kind of faith is in a lie. Notice, he doesn't say, Harry, I want you to work for the ministry. I will give you, XYZ budget, so to speak. That's how government solves problems, right? Throw money at it. I'll give you money to whatever. No. We want people to think you're working for the ministry, even though he won't be. The chosen one, he goes on. It's all about giving people hope. The feeling that exciting things are happening. Notice, it's a feeling. What's the problem with feelings?
They can sometimes not be true.
They can many times not be true. And they're transitory. Right? You could be feeling great one moment and then crappy the next. I walked in my class yesterday morning and we were talking about a poem. It had something to do with death, and I immediately mentioned, not 5 minutes ago, I read an article about 3 students at the University of Virginia who were shot, killed overnight. And, you know, my students' faces, it was an 8 o'clock class, so they were kind of anyways, you know, but they'd been, a couple of them smiling and happy, and it was like, I immediately just hit the downer switch and just, and then I mentioned, you know, the 4 students at the University of Idaho who were found dead in the house. No idea why. Like, is there some connection? People already started. Okay. This isn't a real faith. That is a faith that's, or hope or trust or belief that's based on something, like Dumbledore's actions before. I mean, I guess you could kind of say it kind of is, because Harry has defeated the Dark Lord, you know, how many times now, as Scrimgeour says? Harry. But if I do this, people are going to think I approve what the ministry's doing. Yes. Harry, but I don't. Because what have we already heard the ministry has done to somebody Harry met in book 3? Stan Shunpike, bus conductor,
They arrested him because they thought he was a Death Eater.
and
And he was sent to Azkaban.
sent to Azkaban. Well, you know, I wouldn't expect you to understand. Why? Too young. And yet Harry's already having conversations that are about much deeper stuff than this. Dangerous times. Certain measures need to be taken. In other words, it's, you know, somebody's accused Sakara, so, sorry, Azkaban it is. Right? That's what's happened. What could they do to Stan Shunpike to find out if he is really a Death Eater?
Make him take the truth potion.
You could maybe do, you know, Veritum Sera. What else could you do? Hello, book 5. What does Harry have to do with Snape? Occlumency lessons. Why? What does occlumency stop on the part of somebody else?
Reading your thoughts.
Legilimency. Dumbledore is going to show us. He's an accomplished legilimens. They could have asked Dumbledore to come and do a mind reading for him. Not a Trelawney one, but a Dumbledore one. And proven. Okay? It's easier to just chuck him in prison. They keep talking. You're 16 years old. Yeah, Dumbledore's older than 16. He agrees. Like, wham. Harry. Okay, so you, Scrimgeour, you, like your hero Dumbledore, wish to disassociate yourself from the ministry. Notice how he puts that. I don't think I've ever talked about this line. Harry has to disassociate from the ministry. What does that mean?
Separate himself.
Yeah, but what does it also mean? What does it presume?
Harry's not associated with the ministry.
No, that's what he wants it. That's what he says Harry needs to do. He's assuming Harry is already associated with the ministry. How so? In the sense that all witches and wizards are. Who does the ministry speak for? Witches and wizards. How many of you, now I'll bring politics in, how many of you totally identify with the federal government and everything the government does? You're just, yay. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Or local government, state government, school board, dog cat, whatever, okay? Dog catcher writ large, that's what the president is. Not just this one, all of them. Don't misread the political implications there. So, Harry, I don't want to be used. I saw a couple grins when I said that. Just keep that line in mind till you read all of this book. Yeah, a couple other faces are starting to grin. This book and book 7. Okay? Some would say it's your duty to be used by the ministry. Harry, yeah. And others might say it's your duty to check people really are Death Eaters before you chuck them in prison. Again, wham, took out the other knee. You're doing what Barty Crouch did. Now that's low. I mean, that's meant to be a low blow. You never get it right. You people. What kind of language is you people? What? It can be prejudice. Sometimes it's used totally innocently. And the person who says, yeah, well, you people, gets raked across the coals and, publicly crucified. Here it's not meant to be innocent. What does he mean by you people?
The ministry.
Yeah, you government schlubs, you agents, whatever you want to call them, okay? You never get it right. Either we've got Fudge pretending everything's lovely while people get murdered right under his nose, or we've got you. Notice, we've got incompetent moron, Fudge, or murderous bastards. What's Harry's point? Can we get somewhere in the middle just a little bit to be a competent moron and just a bastard, not a murdering one? Can we just, even that out a bit? Trying to pretend you've got the chosen one working for you. So you're not the chosen one. He interprets Harry to mean, I'm not the chosen one. Harry, thought you said it didn't matter. Shouldn't have said that. Harry's just like, got you. Or just put the noose around your neck. Should have said that. It was tactless. Harry, no, it was honest. It was, what do you mean? It's the first true thing you've said. Why? Because it was unguarded when he said it. You don't care whether I live or die. You do care that I help you convince everyone you're winning the war against Voldemort. How are they doing in that war?
Horrible.
Not so great. Okay? How are we doing? I'll introduce another political thing. And I was a big rah-rah supporter of the whole 9 yards. How are we doing in George W. Bush's Great War on Terror?
Horrible.
9/11, we were attacked. 9/21, Bush gave a speech to the joint session of Congress, regarded by pundits on the left and right as one of the greatest speeches in American history. Didn't rank up there with Gettysburg Address, because nothing does, but it ranked up there. Some said, to Lincoln, to Kennedy's speech talking about, sending a man to the moon, to MLK's speech, I have a dream, etc., all kinds of speeches. But Bush said an utterly asinine, stupid thing. Anybody know what it was? He said, we're going to have this great war on terror, and we're not going to finish until terror is defeated. It's like, did nobody with a basic understanding of human nature read this speech? How do you eradicate terror?
You can't.
Well, you can.
You have to get rid of all human,
Not all. Let's say Sakar wants to eradicate terror. How do you do that? Or let's say I do, or Emilio does. You kill everybody else. Why? Because then none of you could take something of mine. What if I say, this is mine now? And I like that cap, and I like that phone, and you get rid of everybody else. That's how you do it. It's stupid. You can't. Why? Because Gandalf taught us, if anybody would read the damn Lord of the Rings, the shadow always takes another form. And that form is you, and you, and you, and you, and everybody who is you, not me, right? And what's he use for his proof? His visual proof. What Othello calls the ocular proof. He holds up his right hand. I must not tell lies. I don't remember you rushing to my defense when I was trying to tell everyone at the ministry Voldemort was back. And then he says, I don't like your methods. So, Scrimgeour says. Dumbledore's man through and through, are you? That is, you're going to die for the great man. Harry's like, yes, damn right. Until we get to the beginning of the next book, when Harry just, has everything he believed about Dumbledore come crashing to the ground. Right? And the phrase is actually going to be used. The man that he... Stop moving. The man that he idolized. Well, what happens to every idol? They fall, they get destroyed, they get replaced, etc., etc. Okay? A sluggish memory. What time is it? 10:28. What's the sluggish memory?
Slughorn talking to Tom Riddle about Horcruxes.
About Horcruxes. Dumbledore has already told Harry, we need to get this memory. Right? Can't do much without it. Which isn't quite true. They do quite a bit without it. Okay? So, Harry goes off to Dumbledore for another class. He talks about Malfoy and Snape. Professor Snape, Harry. Smack. Come on, kid. Learn some respect. Okay? Harry asks around 361 if, when Tom Riddle came to Hogwarts, if Dumbledore had prepared the faculty, staff, and students. Like, sir, did you have a school-wide, meeting and say, by the way, we've got a new student coming next year, and he's little Satan incarnate, and he's going to grow up and be big Satan incarnate, and I just want you to give him a hug. And make him feel loved. Dumbledore says, no, I did not. Why? Though he had shown no hint of remorse, it was possible that he felt sorry for how he had behaved before and was resolved to turn over a fresh leaf. I chose to give him that chance. Okay, now think about this for a moment, because I'm going to connect it with Tom Riddle's request, or Lord Voldemort's request, in a moment. What did Dumbledore not do against Tom Riddle that Lupin says James and Sirius did against Snape for Harry? Why does Lupin say you hate Snape?
Because Harry does hate Snape.
Nope.
He inherited it.
He inherited that prejudice. He says you are determined to hate him because that prejudice was passed on to you. Okay? What does Dumbledore know about Tom Riddle before he tells Tom Riddle, you can come to Hogwarts?
That Tom Riddle hates muggles.
Possibly. I don't know that it's gone that far yet. He's terrorized muggles. He's tortured other children his age. He's killed little bunnies. It's a bunny. Everybody looks at a bunny and goes, oh, it's so cute. And he, does strange things to it. Okay? Telling you, watch out, dangerous, but he doesn't tell anybody else. Why not? Other than what he says. He wants to give him a chance. A chance to what?
Redeem himself.
Redeem himself? Redeem himself in the eyes of the others? Because there's nothing to redeem since they don't know anything about it.
Prove himself?
To prove himself. To prove him. To show I'm trustworthy, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Dumbledore says, that's what I did. Harry, yeah, but you didn't really trust him, did you? Notice how so much talk about trust is going on. Dumbledore, let's say I did not take it for granted that he was trustworthy. It's a long way of saying he didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. So what did Dumbledore do because he didn't give Tom Riddle the benefit of the doubt? What does Dumbledore seemingly do with every student at Hogwarts? Keeps a close eye. He kept a close eye on Tom Riddle. All right? But he didn't say anything about him. Because if he had said something, if he had said, for example, to McGonagall, who was a teacher, no, she wasn't a teacher yet. If she had said to McGonagall at that point, Minerva, keep a close eye on that one. Bad egg. What would that mean? What would happen to her mind?
It's already been spoiled.
It's been darkened, right? She wouldn't look at him blank slate, where he proves good or bad, which is how every other student arrives. Okay? Go on a bit. Dumbledore talks about not being able to find many memories of Tom Riddle, or many riddles of Tom memory, while he was at Hogwarts. But they do go into another memory, Morphin. Okay? He goes into Morphin's memory. They go into Morphin's memory. And we see Tom Riddle speaking with Morphin. Where is Morphin at this point? Where is Tom Riddle? Where are they when they're having this conversation? At Morphin's house, the gun, hovel, shack, if you want. Okay? What's the purpose of this memory? What do we learn in it? Anybody remember? Before you answer that, where is Morphin when Dumbledore got the memory? Or where was Morphin? In Azkaban. Okay? Not his first incarceration. The first incarceration was for his beating up, essentially, Tom Riddle, Sr. All right? This is later. So what's revealed in the memory? Morphin killed Tom Riddle Sr. and his parents. Why are you looking at me like that, Sakara?
Because I thought Voldemort said he killed his dad.
Exactly. Because it was a false memory. Voldemort planted a memory into Morphin so that Morphin took the blame for killing Tom Riddle Sr. and his parents. All right? 50 years ago. At this point, a little bit more than 50 years ago at this point. All right? And he tells Harry it was difficult to extract the memory, but he did it. And he tried to get Morphin's release from Azkaban. Why? Because Morphin didn't kill Tom Riddle. He was blamed for it. He admitted doing it. They had his wand. And what do we know because of Priori Incantatem?
You can say the last
You
the last
can make the wand do its last spell. And what did the wand do? Avada Kedavra. Like all three of them, one fell swoop. All right? Harry says, look what happened here. I'm trying to figure out what page this is on. This is like 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 pages before the end of the chapter. Well, that's rubbish. Look what happened here. Because Dumbledore has explained to Harry what happens when underage children perform magic in their homes. Okay? He says, the ministry will be unable to tell who performed the magic. They rely on witch and wizard parents to enforce their offspring's obedience while within their walls. Okay? Harry, well, that's crazy. Look what happened to Morphin. Dumbledore, I agree. Whatever Morphin was, he did not deserve to die as he did, blamed for murders he had not committed. Kind of like Gandalf saying, before he dies, he has some hope that Gollum can be cured. He's not saying he hopes that Morphin can be cured, but Morphin is innocent of those murders. Notice what Dumbledore seems to be interested in. An idea, at the very least, of real or true justice. Okay? So, Dumbledore says, one more memory, Harry. Okay? And it's the memory of Slughorn and Tom Riddle. And Dumbledore says, do you notice anything similar between the Morphin memory and this one? And Harry says, yeah, kind of fuzzy at points. Modified memories. I need the real one, Harry. You got to get me the real memory from Slughorn. Okay? Birthday surprises. We're going to skip nearly all of, other than early on, about 5-6 pages, how does Harry try to get the memory from Slughorn?
He just goes up and asks him.
He stops him after class. Professor, can I have a moment? What can you tell me about Horcruxes? And Slughorn's like, dude, Dumbledore showed you the memory, didn't he? He says, yes. Get out of here. So he doesn't tell him anything. All right? They practice apparition. Ron's birthday comes and goes. Ron and Harry go up to have hooch with Slughorn. Ron gets poisoned. Harry saves his life. Elf Tales, 25. We're going to skip most of, not concerned about Quidditch. Yep, skipping all of that. Lord Voldemort's request, 1040. Ooh, we might get farther than my first class. Lord Voldemort's request, chapter 20. Actually, we probably won't, because we'll see. Couple pages into the chapter, Harry goes in and to see Dumbledore. He tells him he tried, and Dumbledore says, did that work? No, sir. Ron got poisoned. And Dumbledore says, which made you forget about, doing your best, etc., etc. So, they continue their lessons, and Dumbledore tells Harry, Tom Riddle reached his 7th year, got ready to leave school, but he wanted to come back. He wanted to stay and teach. And he tells Harry around 425, 426, he had several reasons. Didn't tell any of them to Armando Dippet, the previous headmaster. One of them was he was more attached to this school than he's ever been to a person. This is page 431, sorry. Notice, Harry feels uncomfortable. Why? Because that's how he felt. More attached to the school than to any person. Harry feels the same. More attached to Hogwarts than he did to Sirius, Hermione, Ron, Cho, Ginny, starting. Second, castle is stronghold of ancient magic. Voldemort penetrated many of its defenses and secrets and thought there was more to be learned, okay? Third, he would have great power and influence over young witches and wizards, right? So, after school, Riddle goes off to work for Borgin and Burkes. In other words, he gets his quote-unquote degree, essentially, and he goes to work where? Because what is Borgin and Burkes? It's a pawn shop. It's a second-hand store, okay? And we see a memory, okay? Harry and Dumbledore come out of the memory. 3, 5, 7. Somewhere around 439, 440, something like that. They come out of the memory, and what have we learned in the memory? Hokey, Hepzibah Smith's house elf, did what? Killed her. Right? What else? What else did we see in the memory? It wasn't just about Hokey. What did Hepzibah Smith sell to Tom Riddle? And Borgin and Burke's. What did Hepzibah Smith own that once belonged to Helga Hufflepuff?
Hopefully, goblin.
The cup. Okay? So Borgin and Burke's had the locket and the cup at this point. So, new memory, and Dumbledore makes clear, the memory Hokey had was what? Modified. Okay, so even though house elf magic is not the same as wizard magic, house elves can have their memories modified and such. Hokey didn't actually kill intentionally, let me put it that way. Hepzibah Smith. So, new memory. Dumbledore says, this one's going to be mine. Again, this is 31, 33, 35, 37, somewhere around 439, 440, 441. Dumbledore says it's mine. Okay?
At the bottom of 440.
Bottom of 440. Make a note. The page numbers get progressively even more off. And that's because the American edition has fewer words per page and more spacing, which is weird. So, takes Harry into the memory, and where are they? Headmaster's office. Not Armando Dippett's office, Dumbledore's office. Dumbledore has replaced Dippet. Knock on the door, Dumbledore says enter, and in comes Voldemort. His features were not those Harry had seen emerge from the Great Stone Cauldron almost 2 years before. They were not as snake-like, the eyes were not yet scarlet, the face not yet mask-like. Yet he was no longer handsome Tom Riddle. It was as though his features had been burned and blurred. They were waxy and oddly distorted. The whites of the eyes now had a permanently bloody look, but the pupils were not yet the slits that Harry knew they would become. Okay? Dumbledore says, good evening, Tom. Won't you sit? Voldemort, thank you. Notice, manners, courtesy. I heard you'd become headmaster, a worthy choice. Dumbledore, thank you. Offer you a drink, etc. So they do all the niceties. So, Tom, to what do I owe the pleasure? And it's almost like he's twitching. They don't call me Tom anymore. These days I'm known as, I know what you're known as. Dumbledore doesn't let him finish. Notice how discourteous, how rude, how unmannerly of him. Why?
He doesn't approve.
Why else? This is my office. You follow my rules here. Okay? I know what you're known as, but to me, I'm afraid you will always be, and this is where I wish she had put it just once, Tommy Riddle. I don't know if you've ever known people named Tom. I've known a few. And they all have said that when they were like 10, 11, 12 years or younger, whether they wanted to be called it or not, they were Tommy. Friends, parents, etc., always put that little diminutive. And then once they hit that, pubescent growth spurt, it was, I'm Tom, kind of a thing. Just once to really put him in his place. But to me, you will always be Tom Riddle. One of the irritating things about old teachers, I'm afraid, this next line kind of does it. But they never quite forget their charge's youthful beginnings. So, I see you, Tom Riddle, aka Lord Voldemort, and I see you as 11-year-old snot-nosed kid sitting in my classroom. And he raised a glass like he's toasting him. Notice, he's not literally toasting him. Nevertheless, and I'm going to ask you a question about this passage. Let me ask you this question now. Does the next description that we get of Harry's reading of this meeting, does it fit what we know of Harry's character up to this point? That is, does it seem like something Harry would be capable of doing right here? Nevertheless, Harry felt the atmosphere in the room change subtly. Dumbledore's refusal to use Voldemort's chosen name was a refusal to allow Voldemort to dictate the terms of the meeting, and Harry could tell that Voldemort took it as such. To me, that's not Harry. That's Hermione. Hermione would just sit there and go, ooh, look, let's watch the interpersonal dynamics. All the non-verbal communication as well as the verbal. Dumbledore cut him off because he didn't want him to be able to assert, I am Lord Voldemort. No, you're little Tom Riddle. And Harry understood that Voldemort knew what Dumbledore was up to. What does that mean? What does that do to the dynamics of this conversation? Voldemort's now kind of on his back foot. What's that phrase mean? It's a metaphor, because you're about to fall. So you put that foot back to stabilize you. Dumbledore's just knocked him. He's taken a swipe and connected. I'm surprised you've been here so long, Voldemort says. I've always wondered why wizards such as yourself never wish to leave the school. Now, that's kind of a dig. Why?
You're better than what you are.
You're better than this. Dumbledore, I wonder, I've heard that, the ministry always wants your advice. You've been, offered the post of minister twice, I think. Dumbledore, 3 times last count, actually. Who's counting, Why didn't you want the Minister for Magic job? Think for a moment. What good could Dumbledore do as the Minister for Magic? That's what you have to think when you think about terms of power, because that's what people often will say to themselves. If I win the lottery, I'll be able to do so much good. Some people will say. Others will just go, it's all mine, 1.6 billion. That's what the guy gets who won the 2.1 billion. Okay? His takeaway from that, after all the taxes, it's like 1.6 billion. All right? Oh, think of all the homeless kids I could help. I could build shelters. I could open foods. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? Power. Voldemort. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. 3 times. I've returned later, perhaps than Professor Tippett expected, but I've returned nevertheless to request again what I requested then. Allow me to return to the castle. You must to teach. Don't just, give me an office so I can do my dark research, so I can summon Satan. I think you must know that I have seen and done much since I left this place. Okay? How do we visually know he has seen and done much? Yeah, this. He doesn't look the same as he did. He's already started to push the boundaries of magic so far that he is changing. Okay? Dumbledore considered Voldemort over the top of his own goblet before speaking. Yes, I certainly do know that you have seen and done much since leaving us. Rumors of your doings have reached your old school, Tom. I should be sorry to believe half of them. Now, what does he think about his old doings? What does Tom Riddle, Voldemort, think about the stuff he's done since he left Hogwarts? They're great. It's always an interesting experiment. I'm not going to do it because it steps on too many toes. And while I do try to offend, I don't try to go overboard. Replace the word magic here in this scene with science. I think you must know that I have seen and done much, and we can add the word in here, science, since I left the school. I know you've seen and done much science since leaving us. Rumors of your science have reached your old school. Notice Voldemort's response. We're going to get back to the science in just a moment. Greatness inspires envy, envy engenders spite, spite spawns lies. You must know this, Dumbledore. Why does he tell Dumbledore, you must know this? What's he saying? He thinks about Dumbledore.
Sees him as an equal, almost.
He's done similar things.
Sees him as an equal almost is not the same as he's done similar things. Has Dumbledore done similar things?
No.
No. What's McGonagall tell us in book 1? Just because you won't do what Voldemort does doesn't mean you can't. Okay? He's saying, Dumbledore, you're great. You know that. Your greatness inspires envy. Who? Give me a name. Was or is envious of Dumbledore?
Fudge.
Fudge, clearly.
Umbridge.
Umbridge, possibly. Yeah, I'd say pretty clearly. I think Scrimgeour. Okay? Greatness inspires envy. Envy engenders spite. Notice, envy is the desire to be like or to want what that other person has. Like, who wouldn't want to have Dumbledore's abilities? Okay? Envy engenders spite. But because I can't have Dumbledore's abilities, or I can't run like Usain Bolt, or I can't play basketball like XYZ, or I can't fill in whatever blank you want. I can't do any of it. Okay? He says that engenders spite. So, because I don't have your abilities, what's spite? What's another word for spite? I hate you. Surely there's somebody you know, somebody maybe in popular culture you're aware of, that you look at and go, it's just no damn fair that this person can do not only what this person can do, but several other things. Okay? In spite does what? In spite spawns lies. Because I want to be like you, but I can't because I don't have the ability. I hate you. And therefore, I'm going to tear you down. Right? All of book 5 was about that in one sense. Because Fudge didn't get what he wanted at the end of book 4, because Dumbledore said, he's back. What does Fudge do throughout book 5? He does this. Why is Dumbledore kicked out of the Wizengamot? Lies. Okay? You call it greatness? What you've been doing? Do you? What's he been doing? Replace the word science. Certainly, I have experiments. See, there it is. It's science. He's created a hypothesis, and he's gone about to test that hypothesis. The scientific method. I've pushed the boundaries of science further, perhaps, than they've ever been pushed. Of some kinds of science, Tom. Of some. Of others you remain, forgive me, woefully ignorant. So let's go back to magic. Of some kinds of magic. What kind of magic has Tom practiced, experimented? Dark magic. of some, of others, of other kinds of magic. So if it's not dark, it's
Helpful,
light, magic, light, you know, warm fuzzy bunnies and puppies and kitten magic. You remain woefully ignorant. What's ignorant? Has he just called him stupid?
No.
No.
unknowledgeable.
Unknowing. There's other kinds of magic, Tom, you don't know jack you know what about. For the first time, Voldemort smiles. A taut leer. Not really a smile. It's the best he can do with his plastic face, you know. Think of the Joker, kind of. The old argument. What does the old argument mean? I don't mean the topic. What does the phrase, the old argument, mean or imply?
Coming up over and over again.
They've had this talk before.
Beating the dead horse.
Dumbledore and Voldemort have had this conversation before. What is the topic? Nothing I have seen in the world has supported your famous pronouncements. Notice, famous pronouncements. That implies it's not just Dumbledore and Voldemort who have had this talk. That's Dumbledore has announced this to the world, so to speak, to the magical world. Love is all there is. Okay? That love is more powerful than my kind of magic, Dumbledore. So notice what he says. Here's the argument. Love, I should do it on this side. Love or my kind of magic. Why Latin sinistra, sinister, evil, okay? Love is more powerful than my kind of magic. So what does he mean? Nothing I have seen in the world supports that. Notice how he tried to determine the truth or falsity of Dumbledore's pronouncement. He says, I went out into the world. I experienced the world. What did the world show me?
Not just love and happiness and bunnies and rainbows.
If we had a TV in here, and I could probably pull something up on the computer, but if we had a TV in here, I could turn on. And what would we see? 3 students dead in Virginia, 4 students dead in the University of Idaho. War still going on in Ukraine. Turmoil, death, and destruction. Wall Street going every which way. A new, huge finance scheme that makes Enron and that stuff look like, child's play. The BTX thing, there's some nerdy looking CEO who turns out to be this mastermind, embezzler.
The girl who made those racist remarks at UTK.
That was a few years ago, wasn't it?
No, that was just about.
Oh, I'm thinking about the cheerleader who got, lost her spot.
No.
Something new? Hadn't heard about that. Okay? Just all kinds of crap, right? Election turmoil. I mean, here we are, supposedly United States, greatest democracy in the world. We can't figure out how to count damn ballots. I mean, sheesh. Ridiculous. All kinds of stuff, right? Where's love? Turn on the evening news. Turn on any cable channel other than Hallmark. Because there it's all going to be love. 24 hours a day, 368. Notice I added more days a year. Because the world's just love. It's not there, right? Has Tom Riddle ever in his life, from what we've seen, experienced love? Not romantic, Bellatrixy, because that's what Bellatrix kind of wants. She wants a hookup. Kind of you, sleep with a snake, you, just don't go there. Has he ever experienced love?
No.
Okay? No. Are you sure? Define love.
Care.
Care. What is love? It's a tricky subject, right? People don't want to talk about it that much, especially when we talk about the romantic erotic part. So leave all that aside. We're not talking about that. We can talk about that with Dumbledore and Gellert Grindelwald if you want, but I don't want to. But if you want to, we can, okay? It doesn't come out in the books. It's not stipulated. It's implied. But anyway, what's love? Where have we seen love in the book so far?
When Lily sacrifices herself for Harry.
When Lily sacrifices, no, not Harry, please take me. Stand aside, silly girl. So is that it?
No.
Where else?
Well, I mean, we kind of,
Molly and Arthur, with Percy, like that was.
Molly and Arthur with Percy.
Sirius Black with Harry.
Sirius and Harry.
Ron, Harry, Hermione. Fred and George, you know, they had that special brother.
It's bordering on the weird there, but okay. The Weasley family? Sheesh. Okay. Where else?
Or Dumbledore to Tom Riddle.
How?
Well, first off, going and getting him in the first place when he showed the signs. Like, he treated him differently than most people would to somebody being a sociopath.
Do you think Tom Riddle understands that?
No.
No. Did Dumbledore, does Hogwarts have to ask students to come to it? No. Dumbledore did not have to go see Tom Riddle. And even after he sees Tom Riddle and knows what Tom Riddle does, he still gives him a spot at Hogwarts. Okay, that's pretty big. Where else in Tom Riddle's life? What does Maripe not do when her husband leaves? It's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to admit.
Kill the baby.
She doesn't abort him. She doesn't abort the child when her husband's gone. Why? She thinks, oh, he'll be a reminder of what a wonderful, loving time we had. And then he ditched me and left me without my powers. She carries him to term and
Dies. Give me birthday.
does she just die on the street?
No, she
Does
goes
she
to
just
an
have him in a sewer and stick him in the gutter?
She goes to an orphanage, gives birth there, and then passes away.
She, at the very least, very smallest, most minimal amount you could call it. Good grief. Didn't realize this time. She gives him a home. Okay? We're going to pick up with this. How did I do that? I had no idea I was going off so much. Okay, so we'll pick up with, if you haven't started, don't do anything else but read Deathly Hallows. Screw all your other classes. Tell your professor that.
Can we get that in writing?
It's on video.
Go to